So I had a discussion with EP Mike about Irish goodbyes.
Okay.
And it's like, we've already discussed everything we need to. We're about to part ways. And he's
Right.
like, yeah, so did you catch that baseball game? And I'm like, dude, go away. Like, execute the plan of the day.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you're dismissed. But a true Irish goodbye, nobody really knows you're leaving, though.
Really?
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
being Irish and having
North Irish or South Irish?
just pale and pale and awkward.
Okay.
No, but a true Irish goodbye, it's just like you've met people and they're like, "Oh, where's Mike? Oh, I haven't seen him. He just left." That's an Irish goodbye.
Okay. Well, are you going to sing again for this intro?
No. I feel everybody liked it last week when I got drunk and sang to open the show, but I feel like we captured lightning in a bottle once. So.
Lightning in a bottle.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many jokes I can make with that.
Okay, well, give me one.
Lightning in a bottle would kind of be like the used condoms that women steal from your apartment.
First off, we're gonna do this again. Number
Yes.
1, embellished. Number 2, I don't use condoms. Number 3, there's no number 3.
Welcome to the smoke pit.
A.
That was kind of a weak A.
That was super weak. I'm sorry.
I mean, it's my fault for being so funny.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you're charming. You're good looking. You're hilarious. The full package.
I wish some people would recognize that.
Oh my God.
So we have episode 22.
2-2. Hey, I was with
2-2.
2-2. Hey.
Garbage unit.
I mean,
Absolute garbage
I don't,
unit.
why do you say that?
I
though?
mean, one, you were there. And do I need a number 2 or 3? Because I have them.
Fair enough. I mean, I just did the Mew. I mean, it wasn't anything. We didn't go down range.
Much like how you don't go down on girls.
Oh my God, what the fuck is going on? Are we using this audio?
Zing.
Boom, roasted.
So speaking of garbage 2-2, and everyone who's in it is garbage.
All right.
You know who else has a lot of garbage?
What do you got?
Iraq.
Okay, yeah,
And Afghanistan.
true.
Surprising amounts of garbage.
Yeah, I mean, not so surprising when you've been there.
I mean, I don't think that's fair because, like, just walking around, like, Chesapeake and driving around, like, I'm a little pissed off about how much litter there is, you know?
Yeah,
Like, how am I supposed to have the moral high ground and, like, shit talk other countries when my own city looks like ass?
that's true. And, I mean, with you being removed from not only active duty, but being in combat for so long, do you still do the thing when you drive by, like, just a rogue garbage bag full of shit on the road, you try and avoid it?
No, I swerve towards it.
Do you? Oh my God.
Yeah.
I hate you so much.
Take me today, Jesus.
Oh my God.
We've been apart too long.
You're the worst.
So we figured we'd probably go a little heavier with the combat stories this episode.
I'm not looking forward to it. I try to stay funny and like consistent, but this is, if you want to talk about war, let's do it, man.
Let's fucking do it.
All right.
So welcome to the Smoke Pit. We have
Mhm.
myself, Dan Sharp, Iraq, Afghanistan, Marine Corps Infantry. I got my co-host, Mike Sensi, FMF Navy, Afghanistan, and a dozen other countries and
Mhm.
women's bedrooms. And our executive producer, who's known as EP Mike to avoid confusion,
Mhm.
Army combat engineer, Afghan vet, and I had to take him to the ER the other day. He had acid reflux.
Oh wow. How
Sat
you
there for 3 hours.
You all right, Mike?
Thumbs up.
He gave a thumbs up. Okay. The people can't hear you when you do that.
So, I don't know if you guys have heard this or not, but I'm actually working on a book.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be a collaboration of a few different authors, and we're all going to talk about like our first firefight or like our first experience in combat. And so I was going to read a portion of the first chapter.
Mm-hmm.
You ready to do this?
Oh man. All right, go ahead.
Imagine the most beautiful sunset you can. Powerful, bright, humbling. For a moment I had forgotten where I was. The bead of sweat that ran into my eyes reminded me that I was in Iraq, on an outpost smaller than a Little League field. The evening call to prayer from the local mosque filled the air. I clung to the sound like a blanket on a cold morning, the echo of the last word fading in the night to be replaced by the sound of my heart beating through my chest. The crackle of distorted speakers was seemingly always replaced by the sound of something truly dreadful. Frantically, my ears began to search the nighttime for a sound that I knew to be next. Faintly it arrived, a distant puff. "There she is, boys," my team leaders yelled. A POO, or a point of origin, meant an enemy mortar attack. It's begun. Someone is trying to kill us.
How long ago was that?
Like 14 years ago.
Yeah. You still remember it vividly?
Pretty vividly.
Yeah.
You know, like there's girls that like I've had sex with that I've completely like forgotten 99% of the details. But that distant poo.
Yeah. You never forget a good poo.
You never forget a good poo. So yeah, I have the first chapter written, which is
Mhm.
actually fairly lengthy, but I didn't want to go too into details because I know
Yeah.
our listeners have a short attention spans.
They do, and a lot of you only watch the clips online, so it's whatever.
Yeah, which we will not be doing many of this week
And why is that, Dan?
because I had a bit of a moment
Mm-hmm.
in the shade of my beard.
Yeah.
And
Dan is beardless right now.
yeah, that's why I'm hiding behind the microphone.
Exactly. I don't even know why we're filming it.
Just throw one of these Combat Comb Over cans at the camera. EP Mike is like, oh, my life. My $10,000 camera.
My baby.
Yeah, congratulations to EP Mike, though. He just graduated with his bachelor's degree in film.
Hey. Good shit, Mike. You
we're
want to say
not-
something to the people? Nope. Okay.
Nope. All right. You heard him, folks.
Jesus
He's
Christ.
speechless.
Yeah, speechless of his own accomplishments.
Yeah, I'm not going to say what institution granted
Mhm.
him a bachelor's degree, so
Right.
you guys don't go leave bad reviews.
Yeah, University of Phoenix Online is very reputable.
No, he came from a good school,
He
and
did, he
that's
did.
why he somewhat knows what he's doing.
This is true.
So what about you? What about your first time?
My very first exchange of a two-way gun range.
No, I
It
meant
was-
like your
oh.
your first time losing your virginity.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Imagine it was in a barn.
My first time.
Yeah.
Actually, my first time, I was 15. She was,
Jesus
yeah,
Christ.
she was 22, which is a crime, correct?
Yeah.
Everybody.
You banged a pedophile.
And no, it was in the back of my buddy's Jeep, and it lasted no more than 15 seconds, and it was. I haven't missed a day since.
Not a day. So next time he tries to say it's an embellishment,
It is an embellishment.
timestamp
Oh
that.
my God.
Put it as my ringtone.
Jesus Christ.
Haven't missed a day. But I would have guessed like a corn barn or something. But
No,
the back
we
of a Jeep.
So it was funny. We're actually playing beer pong in my buddy's barn, and then it was in the back
Fucking
of her
knew it.
Jeep. So yeah,
I
you're not.
fucking knew it.
I mean, the stereotypes exist for a reason. There's
Yep.
not a lot to do in Indiana.
So about your first firefight, though.
Oh, now we're doing that.
If you're done talking about sex, you deviant. I know you have to bring it up every
What is
episode.
going on around here? Yeah, probably lasted no more than 15 seconds. No, mine was quick, and I didn't write mine down as eloquently as you did, but it was essentially we were going up to the Shirgazi route, which we did a lot, and ID hit the lead Vic, so we halted convoy, and then we took small arms from just the right side, which is like the weakest attack ever. So
Yeah.
like every other person in the world, I was like, oh, hey, wait for the left. Nothing happened. And so
Not even a complex
yeah,
ambush.
No,
Oh
it was
man.
not complex at all. So obviously the gunner was the first one to return fire, and then it was me and one of my other Marines sitting next to me, and he's like, let's dismount. I'm like, a fucking word, let's do it. And so we dismount. Chaps was up there near the gunner. I was like, sit right there. He's like, Roger that. He's like, I'm in the safest place. I don't know why you're getting out. And so we dismount. I press up against one of those giant tires, and I'm looking, I'm scanning, and I see a muzzle flash coming from one of those gross little mud huts. It felt like forever away. So I started returning fire on there, and then the more we called out, and it didn't last very long from what I remember. But then we sent the scouts out. They were all confirmed kills and everything. And then we, as soon as we repaired
Stacking bodies.
yeah, right, yeah. And as soon as we repaired the lead Vic, which it had a mine roll on the front, so all it did was like fuck up the track a little bit, and then we carried on, and it was over just like that. I mean, there was a lot more instances that happened that deployment, but that was my very first time.
And so, like, what did you learn about yourself from that?
From that, probably that my nose activates. I can breathe really well. My adrenaline spikes. And honestly, you go through training with all the guys and stuff for months and months and months, just expecting to get into these gunfights and stuff. And then until it really happens, and you see them perform and want to help and do everything they're trained to do, it just verified the fact that I could trust every single Marine that was on that convoy with me. Even if they didn't know me, like even if they thought I was a doc, which happens a lot, they knew what mission had to be accomplished, and they did it, man. It was cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool to see training actually pay off.
I think that from my first engagement, I kind of learned like how small in the universe you really are.
Yeah.
You know, like you're just kind of like sitting there waiting for the fate to decide your destiny.
Mm-hmm.
You know, are you gonna live? Are you gonna die? Are you gonna be maimed? Are you gonna be horribly injured? Are you gonna piss yourself? You know.
Right.
Actually, speaking of which, I think I'm gonna make this meme. You remember that part of what was it, Billy Madison, where he was trying to make the little kid feel better, and he's like, everybody pees themselves.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna make a meme about that.
Okay.
Yeah, like trying to play off your first firefight like you weren't scared. Everybody pees their pants. That's what the cool kids do.
If peeing your pants is cool, then I'm Miles Davis.
And you know what's sad is the majority of the girls we go after don't even know who Miles Davis is.
To be fair, when I watched that movie, I didn't know who Miles Davis was. So.
That's the cool thing about being in your 30s and going after girls in their 20s is most of them have never read a book.
Right.
So whenever I quote something interesting, like they think I'm witty and original, like I came up with this Shakespeare line.
Yeah. When you just yell, "It's a trap," they're like, "Oh."
Indeed, it is a
It
trap.
is a trap. You saw me out.
Yeah, proceeds to grab a condom she hasn't poked holes in. You clever dog.
The one you came with, you smart man.
So, what advice did you pass on to the guys who were relieving you?
Well, it's different because obviously I was an RP, so my job downrange obviously was just to bodyguard for the chaplain, any other non-combatants that left the wire, and then anytime we were on an established fob, I was literally teaching McMap. So my downrange deployments were pretty awesome. So
sounds pretty dope.
Yeah, it was honestly some of the best times of my life. But any advice I'd give to guys relieving me, it was just take care of your guys, take care of your chaplain, but most of all take care of yourself because. Believe it or not, I am an empathetic person. Well, at least I used to be. And any Marine that kind of came to me, I was triaging before I sent him to chaps if he even need to see him, or he or she. And so I would take on a lot of that guilt that they had and just wanting to help and stuff. And I remember one time, I've never told this story, but there's this kid.
We're here for you.
Yeah. No,
me and the tens of thousands of strangers who are about to hear this very intimate moment.
I like to keep things light, but this is depressing. This kid came to me. He was a Lance Corporal. He was with the RCT, the Regimental Combat Team we were supporting, and he had lost 2 members of his squad in the first month of being there, and he still had 9 months to go. And he had been coming to our chaplain a lot, and one day he looked a little more panicked than usual, and that's when he told me what happened. He's like, man, because we were on Leatherneck, and he wasn't even on Leatherneck. He was at one of the cops, and he came in, and he was just like, man, he's like, it's just so weird. He's like, you come here, you make that flight together, and he's like, and I'm rolling over my cot every night while I get some sleep, and that cot's empty, and I roll over, and the other cot's empty. He slept right in between them. And so for that whole 9 to 10 months he was out there, he not only had to, keep his head on a swivel to do his job, but anytime he got some time to rest and what you would do and recoup with your boys, like, he just looked left and right, and neither of them were there anymore.
That sucks.
Yeah, and so unfortunately the end of the story is that Marine did kill himself a couple months after we got back, so...
That also sucks.
Yeah. So it sucks because you reach the handout and you're just like, yeah, man, you never say it's going to be okay because that's cliche and not correct. And so just listen to this poor kid. I was, a couple years older, and all he wanted to talk about was like, how many engagements you guys got in? Like, oh, how many IEDs you got? He wanted to talk about combat. Yeah. And I mean, I get it. That was his life and that was his world and that's where we were. But I was like, man, you got to kind of stray away from that. You got to think of something more healthy. But
yeah, like I think at that point, like I would have like broken down the cots and like moved them. Yeah. Like just to sit there and look at them.
No,
like,
he looked at them every single day. I saw him probably 4 or 5 times throughout that 9 months I was there that time. And he talked about that a lot. And yeah, it sucked because, he looked like your typical grunt. He's just, skinny, shaved head, eyes just bloodshot as all fuck. Just stressed and,
Yeah, by God, Afghanistan was by far my worst deployment. Yeah. Like, if you got 4 hours of sleep straight, that was like you were fucking jubilant.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And we were kind of out in the middle of nowhere, and we had a we had a heavy rotation, and like my first deployment, I think maybe like a dozen guys in my company got Purple Hearts. Yeah. And like, it's bad enough as it is. And then like on my 4th deployment, I think we had like 40 or 50 guys get Purple Hearts in the company. And the company was like even smaller. Like I think my first deployment, the company was like 300. And my 4th deployment, the company was like 120.
Jesus.
And so we were having like 1 in 4 guys were getting Purple Hearts. And it was all IEDs. Like Iraq was mainly gunfights for me, and I know everybody's experience was different. Right. But Iraq was like the Wild West. Like anybody out after curfew, you could shoot them. Mm-hmm. Like kicking down doors, being kinetic. House to house, street to street. Big operations. And then Afghanistan was just trying not to get my legs blown off. Yeah. And we were losing EOD guys left and right.
Oh yeah, that was huge. Yeah.
And it got to the point where we lost so many EOD guys that like you couldn't just call them out because you had a funny feeling or saw like disturbed earth or an ant trail.
Yep, same here.
So you'd have to get like indicators. So like, all right, You have the high metallic signature from your metal detector, your Valen, your CMC, whatever, and then you have to find like either the edge of a pressure plate or like white lamp cord or whatever. And it sucked because as you're investigating or interrogating these IEDs, like you're having guys getting hit that way too.
Yeah.
Because not everything was victim initiated.
Mm-hmm.
Like you had ones that were set with washing machine timers, or ones that were like you'd have like a washing cloth pin with 2 wires wrapped around either side of the mouth with like a piece of cardboard in between tied to a kite string.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever the Marine came across the aiming stake, the enemy fighter would pull the kite string, it would remove the cardboard, complete the circuit, detonate the penalty.
Yep.
And the longest one that we found on an IED was 400 meters.
Jesus.
So this cocksucker was 400 meters away with a little fucking string ready to fucking end my life,
Oh my God.
And
we're not in the same time zone. God.
Yeah, and
fuck that guy.
It was just like every time we came up with something to like combat whatever they were doing, they would like try to counter us. So it was like a cat and mouse game.
Yeah.
Like it got to the point where like we're fucking carrying the most like ridiculous shit. Like you have what you think is like your infantry, tactics, and SOPs and stuff like that. All that shit went out the window.
Yeah.
Like that motherfucker was like Tigerland.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in Iraq, it was like, all right, we're going to be in a tactical column, first fire team, possibly in a wedge, like we're going to be whatever. And then, that's when we're out in the open, we get shot at, take cover, return fire, fix and flank, whatever, call in air support. And then when you actually get to like the city, your urban operation tactics, you set your cordon, you have your overwatch, blah, blah, blah. And, you're clearing rooms and stuff like that. But in Afghanistan, like that shit, like I feel like the Lost Boys out there, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
And especially because I was the most senior NCO, and I had worked with the most foreign military units, so they gave my squad to a platoon of Afghans, and so it was 45 of them and 8 of us living in one of their patrol bases.
Yeah.
In an embedded training team. Which is kind of like some weird shit because you usually only hear of like special forces like doing embedded training teams and stuff. But like the fucky thing about the Marine Corps is they like to treat you like cannon fodder and big operations.
Yeah.
But then like in other instances they'll pull you to go do fucking some like Ricky Ticky shit,
Yeah, yeah.
Like they sent me to Jordan to write the fucking urban operation package for the 3rd Tole.
Yeah.
Like, an entire fucking battalion. Like I literally wrote the book for them on how to fucking room clear and shit, literally.
Yeah.
Because I was the primary mount instructor, military operation urban terrain, in Quantico at the basic school. I was, was one of the primary mount instructors out there. So they're like, all right, you're good at this. We're going to send you to Jordan to like teach an entire battalion how not to die.
Ugh.
And then, you get to Afghanistan, it's nothing but mud huts. And it's like, all right, where's this long T hallway Sergeant Sharp taught us about,
Exactly.
Like,
yeah, so you trained the Jordanians. Thank you so much.
I trained
so
one
much.
Torle. And and imagine how bad they wouldn't be if old Sergeant Sharp wasn't there.
If Dan didn't bless them.
The cool thing about those guys is they they were just your average everyday guys. It's not like they were meat eaters,
No.
It wasn't like they're Marines, and they were wily though. Like they knew that I smoked at the time, so like every 5 minutes they're offering me like a cigarette, and so I'd light one up, and they'd all like rack the fuck out.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, motherfucker, just because I'm smoking a cigarette doesn't mean you have to stop buddy rushing, or room clearing, or machine gun drills.
They have ADD for sure.
Yeah.
A couple of them like. I saw a lot of them down there, and a couple of them were, pipe hitters ready to go, but then some of them were just like holding hands, walking around, trying to jump in the shower with you.
Hey, we hold hands.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's different. We make love. It's much different.
I bet, if you put 2 M4s in our hands and said like, hey, go clear that building, there's a 50-50 chance we're going to come out of it alive, which is high odds considering,
Yeah, the numbers, yeah.
Yeah, how fucking many people die in like legit urban combat,
It's true.
You get some fucking unit that, they clear like a few fucking rooms because they get pop shot and they're like, yeah, we're fucking fighting and shit. Like,
right.
Until you've actually like come to a fucking hallway and seen like an enemy fighter at the end of it, like that's a whole different fucking ball game.
Yeah, for sure.
Because like you can trade lead on top of a roof, and that's scary enough as it is. Like I've had fucking rounds like hit the wall right over my head, hit the piece of cover I was hiding behind, like send fucking like gravel and shit flying up into my eyes,
Yeah.
rounds, pepper on my feet as I'm running down the road.
Yeah.
But it's a whole different fucking ball game. Like when you're in an actual house with somebody who's shooting at you 5 feet away,
who's been in the house and knows the house.
Knows the house. They they know where to fucking wait for you. They know
Yep.
where the blind spots are. They're throwing grenades at you. There's IEDs. Like, that shit is fucking brutal.
That's war.
But at the end of the day, I still would have taken that over Afghanistan though.
Yeah.
Because it was all fucking IEDs. you know, like we got shot at maybe twice the
Yeah.
entire deployment,
Yeah.
and it was like harassing fire from like
Usually kids.
400 or 500 meters away.
Right. Yeah.
And you know, Afghanistan was just all fucking IEDs, man. Like I was out in that embedded training team, and 7 of my Afghans fucking got pink misted by I think it was like a 70 pounder.
Oh damn.
Yeah, so in Iraq in the beginning war, they were using like artillery shells and stuff as, you know, IEDs and stuff, and after they finished blowing it all up on us, you know,
Yeah.
eventually they started making their own shit, HME, homemade explosive. And the funny thing with that, I forgot the ammonium potassium or ammonium nitrate or whatever, but the way the acronym, like when you took the scientific principles and put them together, it spelled out anal. So like, watch out for the anal out
Yeah.
there, you know, like, oh man, you better believe I'm watching out for it.
That's right. I'm always looking out for anal.
And so like a 10 pound, like you figure like an oil jug, you know, like you would change your oil with. I'd have like 10 pound, like one of the bigger ones, like maybe like a kiloliter box size. It was like 30 pounds. 10 pounds would be like enough to like blow your legs off below the knees. 30 pounds more than likely kill you, if not take 2 or 3 limbs.
Yeah.
And then once you start getting up to the 100 pounders, like those are cracking MRAPs.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And so this was like a 70 pounder, and they were in a soft skinned like Gen 2 Humvee,
Oof.
like open top
Stand a
hatchback.
chance, yeah.
Yeah, and they're just fucking driving, and fucking boom, pink mist.
Yeah.
One of them lived, and the 7th one, he lived and then died the next day.
Ugh.
And so it was like, you know, we had to go down there and like collect the bodies and like wait for the evac and shit. And it was just soup, man. Like
Oh, yeah, of
fucking
course.
jawbones and
Yeah.
ribs and spines and all that shit, you know. And, you know, just sitting there like on the fucking bodies waiting for whatever 2-star in Kabul to finish his fucking Guitar Hero
Right, exactly.
tournament at the USO to, you know, authorize moving of the bodies, because they have to be buried before sundown, otherwise they get real pissy.
Yeah, oh yeah. It's a big deal with them.
And so we're sitting there like literally on these fucking body bags, and I was like, fuck it, I'm hungry. And like I bust out like a fucking one of those like First Strike power bars that
The
you get
Ranger,
here.
the
Yeah.
Ranger bars.
Yeah, the
yeah.
Ranger bars, they're
Yeah.
fucking god awful.
They're terrible.
And so I take a bite in that, and all my fucking boots are like, oh, thank God. Like, I didn't want to be like the dickhead, you know? I'm like, I don't think they'll care.
Yeah, exactly. They're not going anywhere.
And then so eventually, you know, we got the authorization, and the fucking, you know, the bird came down, and a bunch of the higher ups and the Afghan army came out to our position because like that was their dudes, you know?
Yeah.
And so like they were helping us carry the bodies onto the bird, but we didn't need help because I mean most Afghan soldiers were like $110 to begin with,
Oh, easily.
like soaking wet with bricks in their
Easily,
pocket, you
yeah.
know. And then after, you know, you get fucking turned into pink mist, and
Mm-hmm.
like these. I just remember when I went to pick up a bag, like, you know, like when you pick up a bag that has like a marine in it, like there's some heft there, you know,
Yeah.
especially with like, you know, if they keep any of the gear in it or
Right.
whatever the case is. Sometimes if the ID is bad enough, like shit gets fused to the body, so you can't remove it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you take what you can, like serialized gear, like night vision, bayonet, like whatever, for accountability. So, you know, because you want to make sure the enemy doesn't get it.
Right.
But, you know, I went to heft this bag, and I almost fucking like clean and jerked that shit right over the wall.
Oh, yeah.
And like I'm glad I didn't, because
Yeah.
I've been like super disrespectful.
Yeet.
Yeah, just yeet. Fidel, man, who's a good man.
Yeah, right. Yeah, super light, turns
Yeah.
out.
And so like I almost yeeted this fucking bag over my head.
Yeah.
And I was just like, fuck. And then like, you know, this like Afghan fucking general came over, and he took the other strap, and like, you know, we loaded all the the bodies on the bird. We came off, and like everyone's like patting our shoulder, and like fucking like all the Afghan officers are like crying and giving us
Yeah.
hugs and stuff. And I'm like, I get it. Like it's a time to be emotional. Like you didn't serve with these guys every day like I did.
Right.
But at the end of the day, like I think that's what happens to a lot of us is we internalize that shit, you know? Because this wasn't the first KIA that I've experienced, you know? This wasn't
Right.
the first fucking person I've evac'd. And so, like, these dudes are just, like, tore the fuck up. And, like,
Yeah.
part of me is just, like, get the fuck over it.
Yeah.
Like, we have a war to fight. Like,
Yeah.
the mission doesn't stop just because, you know, like... But then the other part of me was just like, man, like, you can't tell somebody else how to grieve, you know?
Yeah, yeah. It's getting to the point now in my career, especially if I hear of like a suicide or like the onesies and twosies who are still dying downrange, because there's still wars going on, people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's to the point like if he's one of ours, like, got to get my dress uniform ready. Like I just start thinking like that, you know what I mean? Like I never think like, oh, how well did I know this person or anything? Like
Yeah.
it's made me very jaded.
Yeah, and also to the fact that I think we talked about this a little bit, like when somebody does die, like all of a sudden they became like the best Marine,
Oh,
the
of
best
course,
soldier
yeah,
that's ever existed.
yeah,
And I remember, like, not to speak ill of the dead, but I remember
Sure.
one of the dudes that died, he was a real cocksucker.
yeah, yeah,
Like, I did not like him at all.
yeah. People, yeah, be
Didn't mean I
dead
didn't
and-
want him to die,
Of course, yeah, but yeah.
he was a prick.
That's a really good point. You hear all the eulogies from friends, like the most bravest, like most honest, like no and no.
Yeah. Like, this dude still owes me $50.
Right,
Like,
exactly.
Can I get an
Yeah.
IOU out of the SGLI? Like, you
How
put a
does
lien on
work?
that?
Yeah.
I mean, do I talk to his family? Like, how does
How
this
soon
work?
is too soon to ask for money?
Yeah, that dude had me take his duty and never paid me. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, so like, and then like you go back out to the your patrol base and stuff, and then like the Afghans are pissed, like
Yeah.
they're not from that area because they didn't want to be like corruption, so like whatever units they'd send them, they deploy them elsewhere. Because like
Mhm.
imagine if we had like riot police, like would you want like the local riot police or would you want like riot police from a different area if you were like the command? If I
Right.
was local, I'd want the local police
course, yeah.
because they'd be more sympathetic. But as like a command, as far as like effectiveness, you want another unit. And so like they're fucking just turned on the locals. Like we'd be out on patrol and they're like fucking beating up people and like
Yeah.
breaking shit. And I'm like, look, I get it, you're pissed, but like, we gotta still be professional. We don't want to create more insurgents than we kill.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's big.
And so we did like a snap VCP, and he's like this kid, was probably maybe like 13, and his brother was like 8, and they were coming through on a moped. And so I told Chavera, who was like he had the X-spray kit, and I was like, all right, do an X-spray on him.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a explosive residue kit.
Yeah.
And the younger kid, the 8-year-old, he popped for homemade explosive.
Yep.
And I ran the test 3 times before I said anything, which like they're very fucking. Is there a saying you can say when somebody's very cheap about something that isn't racist? Because the first 3 that came through my head were all racist.
You can just say cheap. Way to go. Good job.
Yeah, and so they, and anytime you do anything, they want a fucking report and accountability and stuff. And so I ran this test 3 times because this kid was like 8,
Mm-hmm.
And like I looked at Chavera and I was just like, brother, man, like, are you sure? And he's like, Sergeant, like, we did the test 3 times, like. Like it's out of our hands at this point. I'm like, all right, Roger. And so I go over to the patrol leader because like when we went out, it was like a squad of Afghans and like 4 of us, and then the other 4 would be back at like the patrol base, like on their like either supervising training or watching the G-Boss, like the big thermal camera that we had on our MRAP,
Mm-hmm.
and just make sure like if there was like a mutiny, they can like fucking.
Yeah, of course.
Because that was a big thing,
Yeah.
like you have like the insider attacks and mutinies and all kinds of shit,
Oh, all the time. Yeah.
So it was like there was one time where I fucking the staff sergeant that was in charge of like the like our portion of it, like he got into a fucking physical altercation with the Tole commander, and like he fucking he busted him for being corrupt, and he was like taking funds off the top that he was supposed to be like using for Force Pro,
Right.
And so he like tried to take the notebook as like evidence, and like the dude had his bodyguard like pull an AK on it, and the staff sergeant was like a fucking, I think he was like a 3-tab former MARSOC, like martial arts instructor
guy.
trainer,
Yeah.
black belt red tab,
The wrong
like
guy.
the wrong motherfucker.
Yeah.
And so he did some fucking Jackie Chan shit and fucking like put the bodyguard down.
Yeah.
And then like the fucking colonel or lieutenant commander or whatever in the Afghan army ran over and he hit him with a fucking a heel palm strike in the solar plexus, dropped him.
Perfect.
And like I'm out on patrol when this is happening, and my fucking RTO Lloyd was just like, Sergeant, like, and he hands me the mic, and like I'm listening to this in, and like I'm hearing fucking the staff NCO calling the report. He's like, yeah, I just beat up the Tole commander, and like the fucking like the little lance corporal was like, Roger. You hear in the background, he did what? The fucking gunny is like,
Just
staff
dropped,
sergeant, you better explain yourself right now, and just like, dude, like that. Freaking out over the net is not the way to do it.
No,
like,
God, no.
Roger,
Yeah.
consolidate. We'll send QRF.
Yep.
Like, you're not having a fucking an argument with your girlfriend,
Yeah, exactly.
And so I'm on patrol, and I hear the fucking like this going over the mic, and like the Afghans kind of like hear certain words, and they're like leaning in, and I just reached over and turned the volume down. I was like, let's head back to base.
Yeah. It's like a good time to regroup.
Yeah, so I told the squad leader, I was just like, hey man, like I gotta head back to base, like.
Yeah.
so at least the 4 of us can turn into 8 of us. It's a little bit more defensible, you know, because out on patrol, like IEDs were so bad, like we had to mark the lane with shaving cream.
Yep.
And if you step to the left or to the right, like there's a good chance you would hit an IED. Like the intel report said that Sangin was infested
Yeah.
with IEDs.
Yep.
I mean, much like your underwear.
Yeah.
And
what the fuck?
kidding. Yes, he has free medical, ladies. You know, I'm taken care of.
It's not infested. It is there.
And so, back to the X-Spray story. And so I go up to the patrol leader, and I was like, hey, look, like, we did this test, and the little one has homemade explosive residue on his hands, and he lost his shit, and I'm like, dude, like, calm down, like, we got, like, we'll detain him, we'll call in the report, we'll go back to the patrol base, we'll wait for the mobile unit to come pick him up,
Right.
and we're just gonna do our jobs. And so we get back to the patrol base, and like I go in there, and anybody who's ever been on fucking patrols know this feeling. Like you get back into friendly lines, you clear your weapon out, put the round back in the mag,
Right.
go back, to condition 3 or yellow or whatever
it was.
yeah,
it
whatever
always
fucking
changing,
goofy things. And so you walk in, and you pop your fucking top off, and you still have all your gear on, and you have your weapon, your Kevlar, and you're walking in to the COC, and I'm like, hey. I was just like, hey, man, like, I think it was, God, what was this kid's name? He stepped on an IED, and it was, like, it only partially detonated, so it just sent him up in the air, like, 3 feet.
Oh, wow.
And Harms. So I tell Harms, I'm like, hey, man, like, fucking, spin up this report. Like, we detained this kid. He popped for HME. And so, like, I go back out to, like, supervise the chain of custody for everything. And I come around the corner, and the fucking patrol commander or the patrol leader and his like A/slash were like beating the fuck out of this kid. And I'm like, whoa, like I leave you assholes alone for 2 seconds. And
They've
like,
been waiting.
Yeah, they're like giving him the obliga chops,
yeah.
like the fucking knees.
Jesus.
And yeah, like they're beating the fuck out of this, and it's like an 8-year-old kid.
Yeah, of course. So it's not hard.
Yeah. And so I get it, man. And I'm like, dude, like I understand. Like you just lost 7 of your boys. Like this kid has.
Yeah.
Is literally we caught him red-handed. But like this isn't our job,
Yeah.
Like, you only the courts will really say if he's innocent or guilty or whatever. Right. Maybe he was just transporting shit, because his family was threatened or whatever. Like you don't know. You can't treat everybody like shit, Yeah,
especially overseas. Like they were known to give their kids just like in gunfights. Like when they're outnumbered, they would just give it to the kids and be like, "All right, I'll protect you. Peace out. Like just finish this for us, please." Like so, who knows what that kid did?
Yeah, or even that, or they'd just be like, "Hey, take this gun and go hide it."
Right.
Like I'm gonna pretend like I'm just a goat farmer.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and so it was difficult, because of you expect to like lose people, you expect to like fight armed combatants, but you don't expect to like have to fight kids.
No, you never do.
No, and it just goes to show you like how shitty the people we're fighting.
Yeah, I mean war is war and it's hell, like everybody knows. But it is weird. I remember coming back and the dead kids thing really got to me, just because I wasn't ready for that. I was ready for buddies lost, I was ready for enemies killed, but no one ever tells you about the kids,
Yeah.
And so that was my biggest thing. So you're right, I empathize with that as well.
And it's not just the ones that you see that got shot or whatever, because like or you put a tank round into a house because you're taking fire, and you go to do your BDA, and there's a family in the fucking corner, and you're like, God,
all huddled
like,
together.
Like, Christ, what have we done?
Yep.
It's not. I mean, it's not our fault, but it is. And so it's like one of the things that you have to live with. But not only that, but we were out on a patrol, and we kind of like pop in on houses from time to time, do a little spot church, talk to locals, and sometimes like you'll get intel reports like, hey, this guy wants to give you intel, or through your own like sources and stuff, like you've made connections, and this dude's like, dude, look, I'm really fucking scared, and I'm like, hey, well, you got to tell us like if something's wrong, like we'll protect you, whatever. And see, like the thing is, you can't go straight to this guy's house because that's gonna out him,
Yeah.
So what we have to do is we have to search like 10 houses in an area, and then like house 3 or house 9, will be the actual informants.
Yep.
And so we're doing a little spot checks, like going through. I think like 3 or 4 houses down the road was the guy we're actually gonna talk to, and the corpsman was just like, hey, Sharp, you got to come see this. And I come in the room, and there's this like little girl, like maybe 4 years old, and she has 3rd-degree burns over like 25-30% of her body.
Yeah.
And she's like all fucked up, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, like what happened? And I'm like, was this us? And like, no, her mom was like cooking rice, and like she ran over and like knocked over the boiling oil. And so it wasn't even combat related.
Yeah.
And he was just like Sharp, we got to do something.
You
I'm
gotta
like,
treat
yeah,
her, yeah.
like obviously. And so, we halted the mission, passed it over to, higher. They actually flew the little girl and her father to Baghdad to get her skin grafts.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and so, like, while we were there, like, he was, like, teaching them how to, like, clean the wounds, because they didn't leave for, like, 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
Because they had, get the wheels spinning and all that, and the paperwork. And so, like, the doc was teaching them how to, like, clean the wounds and, like, dress it and, like, ointment and stuff like that. Give them all the supplies, and you're just like, God bless them.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've done the best we can. Like, we'll be back in a couple days to, take you on a convoy.
Right. Yeah.
But it's like, that wasn't even combat related, but
Yeah.
you see things that are all fucked up.
It's true.
You got anything else on that?
Well,
I have like 38 more stories just about fucked up kids.
I was gonna say, the dad kids thing really got to me. Not so much about dad. Not that I want to talk about. It's not really stories. Just I saw a lot of them, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I did want to touch on the Jordanians about their fighting prowess, because there was an instance where we were at Fob Sherghazi. Like, I like to talk about the place a lot because we traveled there, and everybody loved me as the RP. So I like to shout out the good places. So we used to travel there a lot, like regularly, and we missed one trip because Chaps had hurt his knee PTing, because he was a prior Marine and he PT'd all the time.
Yeah.
And he so they're like, oh, we got to miss this trip, and I was like, all right, whatever. So I sat on Leatherneck and I jerked off for like 2 straight days. It was great. And so then we get reports that like Sherghazi got hit, like people are coming back. Like, I was like, oh fuck. And so So what happened was, there was a Marine in our office, and I was shaking him for information. I'm like, what happened to my favorite fob? And he's like, all right, so this is
Are the whores okay?
Are the whores okay? Are all my fans okay? So they came through the VBID to open up the gate, obviously, and then they came through with a couple vests, like 3 guys in vests with AKs, and that was, again, their plan. I experienced a lot of the B teams downrange, and so the VBID took out the gate, and then they were opening up on where the Jordanians were. And next to Jordanians was usually where the guest tent was, which is where me and Chaps would sleep. And so if we had been there, we would be absolute spaghetti, because that took out the whole fucking guest tent. It was like to shreds. I mean, stuff was blown apart. So it's probably a good thing we weren't there, because there wouldn't be a smoke pit. But
or even worse, it'd be me and EP Mike.
That's right. So there wouldn't be a smoke pit.
Man, so like, why did they put like your staging area outside of the Force Pro?
It was a super fucked up situation, because the fob was so weirdly constructed. It wasn't really even a fob. It was just a place where there was Marines, and so it was nothing but
something
open.
that was built that we just like, okay, we'll shit here.
That's exactly what it was. It was, and all around it was just outside the wires was nothing but farmland. For miles and miles and miles. So the fact that you even got the jump on them to get a VBID through there is fascinating. It just actually shows complacency on everybody there. And I'm not talking shit, but it's what happened. And
whatever Lance Corporal was on post.
That's exactly what it was. And so we so I'm talking to this kid, and he's like, so they came through. He's like, nobody was really ready. Again, just stagnant. And the Jordanians, 2 of them responded. We're just fucking, going right at him. And
yeah, welcome.
That's right. So those are the ones Dan trained. So they were, doing pipe hitter shit. And this kid, he's like, I couldn't find my rifle because it was lost in all the stuff. And he's like, so I ran over, and there was a Jordanian sitting in one of the fucking fallout shelters, and he's just clutching his rifle. And he's like, give me your fucking rifle. So they're doing this back and forth. He's like, give me it. He's like, no. He's like, give me your fucking rifle. So so once he got the rifle out of his hands, by the time he went to where the action was, it was pretty much over. And so unfortunately, some Jordanians did die. And so when they were clearing,
those weren't the ones I trained.
I'm pretty sure they were, actually.
No.
And it said,
if I trained them, they would have been invincible.
It said property of Dan Sharp on their body tag. And so they were cleaning up. So we got there a day later when they were still cleaning up, and the body bags were like near the front and stuff. And there was this local farmer in the area who would just walk onto this fob all the fucking time. Like, everybody knew him, and he was known as the footbread guy. He would always bring fresh baked footbread to everybody.
Oh, fucking delicious.
Yeah, it's really good. And one of the things I loved about that place. And so, again, they never screened this guy. He was just like, they made an understanding years ago, I guess. And it's like, hey, if you don't fuck up my crops or my farm, like, hey, I'll bring you footbread. Yeah. And so during all this confusion,
don't be doing no terrorist shit
right, exactly.
with the footbread.
And so he comes in. he just like walks through the open blasted gate, and again, I just gotten there, and I was like,
hello my baby,
right.
hello my
I was
darling,
like, okay,
hello
cool, this
my
is where I
ragtime
die.
gal.
And I'd never seen him actually deliver it before, and I was like, hey, should I draw my rifle in the sky? Like, what the fuck? And so everyone's like, hey, it's Footbread guy, and went back to pick up pieces of stuff. And so this guy is just so numb to this in his war-torn country. He would literally stepped over the body bags of the dead Jordanians, stepped over them, not around them, literally over them like Allen Iverson, and fucking went up to us and was like, Footbread? And I was like, maybe later, man.
Yeah.
Maybe respect the dead. But yeah, just another random thing about war-torn countries. This shit like that stuck in my head. The Footbread guy always makes me laugh.
You know who couldn't make footbread?
Who's that?
The kid that I saw that got his leg blown off.
That's why?
Because he got his leg blown off.
But he could make feet bread.
I mean, I think you need like something to like stand on to put foot on, like unless he had like a chair or something, like, or like the villagers like hoisting him up.
Oh my god.
So speaking of which, kid gets his leg blown off, and he gets a prosthetic, and so I take my squad by the compound, and we go in there to check on everything, see how things are going, and he was actually on his way to school.
Okay.
And so I asked the kid, I was like, so sorry this happened. Did you stop going to school? And he's like, no, like this isn't going to stop me from getting my education.
Nice. Wow.
Yeah, and that hit me pretty deep,
Wow.
Because I cut class a lot.
Right. Yeah. I refuse to use the GI Bill because I refuse to be a nerd.
Yeah.
And I'm stupid.
And so like that, he still walked to school every day. Like here we are with thousands of tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment.
Yeah.
Walking the same streets. He doesn't have a sweeper. He doesn't have a Valen or a counter IED like jammer or a sickle or body armor or anything, and he's already gotten a leg blown off.
Mm-hmm.
And he's still walking to school every day.
Wow. And
so there's actually a picture. We'll have to post it on like the Smoke Pit story or something when this episode drops. I handed him a Sharpie, like the Sharpie that you use to write like tourniquet and stuff on like people's forehead or whatever, and asked for his autograph because I told him that he was the bravest kid I ever met.
That's awesome. Yeah. And
so he gave me his autograph, and so I think like 2 or 3 times a month I would take my squad around the area, and we would do route clearance sweeps around the school. Because, like, if you can't even fucking walk to school safe, like, what the fuck's the point,
Yeah.
And so, in, like, the 2 or 3 months that we were doing that before we got relieved, we found 7 IEDs that were on the streets around the school.
Wow.
7 separate IEDs we found. And it was just gut-wrenching to think that, like, those cocksuckers knew this was a school,
Mm-hmm.
And, like, here they are intentionally putting fucking IEDs, like, on the streets around it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean, like, within, like, a click around it. I mean, like, these streets were, like, literally within, like, 20 or 30 meters of the school.
God damn.
And I think 4 of them were on the roads that actually went around the outer compound wall.
Yeah.
4 of them were actually, like, on the road that was touching the compound wall of the school. And then, like, the other 3 were, like, little side veins that you would take to that road.
Yeah.
And so it's like these pieces of shit were, like, doing that. And so I felt like that was, like, a small contribution that I made to that community.
Yeah, for sure.
Because, you go out on your missions and stuff like that. And the idea is to keep your Marines safe, you know. You want to destroy the enemy, but you can't destroy the enemy if you have casualties. So it's very important to, do good route selection, to, study rat lines, to study intel reports, plan things on like time of day, like, all right, so, where is the sun position? Where is the shadow, on this alley because of these walls? Like, where are the blimps? Where are the ISR? Like, what infrared or what surveillance went over that area last night? What direction did they come from? And you take 30 different pieces of raw information, and, the patrol leader puts all these things together and decides the best route possible. And I was very fortunate that any mission that I was directly in charge of, I didn't take any casualties.
Nice. That's good.
There was missions that we were on that, we hit IEDs, but I wasn't directly in charge of it. There was, a superior who was in charge of me, and I just happened to be like a vehicle commander or whatever.
Okay.
But every single route that I ever planned in Afghanistan, we didn't take a single casualty.
Nice.
And we actually, you guys, when we were in San Antonio, you guys met my my sweeper, Barrera.
That's right. Yeah, that's cool.
Funny story about that. So he and I were fucking like, thick as thieves because, I'd have my route planned out, and it's really important to communicate with your sweeper and stuff. And so he'd be like, Sarn, look, I don't have a good feeling about that alleyway or this route or whatever. I'm like, all right, dude, like, you're walking point. Like,
right.
Like, if you don't have a fucking warm and fuzzy, like, we'll go around or we'll, interrogate or, we'll do whatever we need to do to make you feel comfortable. And I feel like that's, and not to bag on other people, but that's kind of, I think, why a lot of units took casualties, because they were more worried about time having priority than mission having priority.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And to me, like, I told the guys, I was like, I'll be fucking 3 hours late for a patrol. I don't give a shit as long as I can bring all my Marines.
Yep.
And so we had this like telescoping pole that had like a sickle on the end of it and extended out to like 18 feet. And like I was always fucking like sickling corners and alleyways and intersections and stuff, like, because like titties. Thinking about titties.
God.
Typical infantry tactics, you want to cover obstacles by automatic fire.
Yeah.
Whether an obstacle be a choke point or a barrier or whatever. And since they lost the majority of the gunfights, they just started putting IEDs over choke points, and so I think I popped like 4 IEDs with my sickle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how fucking puckering that shit is.
Yeah.
You're interrogating and there's an IED.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like we'd always go real slow, and I always trusted his instinct because he was an 0351. And when I said that this company was undermanned, like 70 of us came over from a different battalion right before they deployed because they were so undermanned, and most of us were 0311s infantry.
Yeah.
And this was a weapons company, and so they used this as mainly their dismounts.
It's ridiculous.
And so we were undermanned to begin with, but he was an assaultman, so he was used to like explosives and C4 and all that stuff, and so he was sweeping with the metal detector. And now the actual pressure plates themselves use low metallic carbon rods from batteries, like D cells, and that's what they would tie the wires to and put the pressure plate on. You step on it, complete the circuit, detonate the penalty. And the only metal that you could detect was like the 9-volt batteries or whatever power source they were using,
right,
which they wised up and typically started staging far enough away from the actual IED itself that it was hard to detect, So that's why you had to look for all these other indicators: disturbed earth, ant trails, turn the map around and be like, if I was an enemy, where would I put things? And and there's times where I'd be like, if I was the bad guy and I was on the other side of the map, I would put the fucking batteries over there and I'd sickle it and pull out a battery and be like, sing it again, rookie biatch.
Exactly. Yeah. It's my first rodeo.
Yeah. And so we were there, and I was just like, all right, so what are you thinking here? Like, we have a little powwow,
right?
And it's not like typical infantry tactics where you can just kind of like meet in the middle for like a leader's recon or like whatever. Like, we're single file with a fucking shaving cream line.
Right.
That was your fucking, you had to hold that like a handrail. That was the swept path. And even sometimes like we'd have people get popped on the path just because everybody in front had stepped over the pressure plate. Yep. And there's this one kid. God, his first name was Lewis, and he was a little short, stubby kid. And whenever he was walking, I was like, stop, look at your feet print. And he looks down and he's like, what, Sergeant? I was like, look where the beginning of your foot and the end of your foot and your alternate start and stop. I was like, you leave no like open ground. Oh, wow. And granted, you have all your gear on, you have your pack, like everybody's taking stutter steps to begin with. I was like, but if there is an IED on this track, you're going to find it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you barely leave any room in between your steps. Like, you're literally touching every inch.
Yeah.
Because in Sangin, the only safe piece of ground was the place you're stepping on.
Yep.
And not even if there was, if it was a command initiated IED,
Yeah, exactly.
And so I told him, I was like, stop, all right. And so I'm talking to Barrera, and I was like, all right, so what do we got here? And I was just like, he's like, I don't got a good feeling about this. Like, I'm like, all right, well, let's interrogate. Because like I said, we lost too many EOD guys to, just fuck around. So he's doing a sweeping, he gets a ping, he interrogates 9-volt battery. We're like, all right, cool, that's one, we need two. And so he starts kind of like, gently like fluffing it with his fingers, and he sees like a little bit of what looks like exposed white lamp cord. Because lamp cord is what a lot of because it's cheap,
it's cheap, yes.
Highly manufactured, highly conductive, the insulation keeps it from eroding. And so what appears to be like a small white wire, I'm like, all right, cool, we got disturbed earth, we got battery, we got the fucking white lamp cord, like boom, call it in.
Absolutely.
And like 2 hours later, EOD shows up, and when they're interrogating it, you know those like metal like ointment cream tubes, like Preparation H.
Oh
or,
yeah.
It was one of those.
Yeah.
And so it was just like the end that was like rolled up, and it made it look like cord. The battery wasn't attached to anything.
Yeah.
And so it was a fucking the EOD dude fucking pulls it out of the ground. It's a fucking tube of hemorrhoid cream.
And you're like, boom, roasted.
So we spent 3 fucking hours on a cordon for a
God.
goddamn fucking tube of hemorrhoid cream. And we're all giving him shit about it, but at the end of the day, I was like, look, man, like I would rather be wrong about fucking. I'd rather be wrong about 10 fake IEDs than wrong about one real.
1000%.
Yeah, one real IED.
I remember the first time we called an EOD for a confirmed IED, and it was funny because the IED, it was like should have been an arrow just pointing and saying, "Don't run this over," because it was like it was a thing they used to do. I don't know if they did in Iraq, but they'd stack rocks. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like a lane of stacked rocks, obviously not normal. And then you went, it was literally a lump in the disturbed earth. It's like, this is the most IED I've ever seen in my life. And so they called in. We
Complete with a guy with a pair of binoculars.
Exactly,
like,
yeah. It was like a movie. It was ridiculous.
Guy with a camera.
And
like,
so
nothing
I remember,
suspicious.
right, nothing to see here. And my Vic was in between 2 mountains. And this is where a lot of my anxiety from my 2013 deployment came from, was waiting for EOD. Because it took them 9 hours to get to us.
Jesus.
And so, obviously, whatever, I would rather them take 10 hours, and fucking get this out of our way. But we were in between 2 mountains. It was me, and it was there was a lieutenant colonel, for some reason, in our Vic. The driver, lieutenant colonel, and then me and Chaps. And that was it. It was always in our Vic. And so we were just like bullshitting forever. But I would sit there because I had my security face on, because, Chaps sitting there praying whatever he does. And, I was just like, did something move? And like, and there would be nothing. And then even the lieutenant colonel was like, RP, calm the fuck down. I was like, look, I'm the only one in this vehicle who's gonna do anything. And shit pops off. And so
you can do shit with your pistol, sir.
Right, exactly, yeah, with this fresh haircut and shit. And so for 9 hours, I sat there scared out of my mind, waiting for an ambush, just waiting. And I remember I took like the longest pee in my life because I just chugged nothing but Rippets and water before we left. And then I had to piss. Obviously, it was good that we found this ID. I was probably going to piss my pants. And I remember opening the door. Like, it's like a movie. I like opened with my rifle. I was like, okay. And so finally, I pulled my poor excuse of a penis out, and I started peeing all over the place. And it was like the longest piss in my life. It felt so good. But then while I was pissing, I was just like looking out into the Afghan mountains. I was like, I hope nobody shoots my fucking dick off. So literally for 9 hours, we sat there waiting for EOD to show up, and I was just like, did you guys hear that? What's going on? What is that? And they're like, RP, calm the fuck down.
Were you all zooted on cocaine and hookers?
No, I was a copious amount of Rippets, and I had just masturbated before we left, so I was like hyper-focused.
Shameless plug for our sponsor, Combat Comb Over.
Hey.
It's a pomade. It'll make your hair look good. Check out combatcombover.com. Check them out on Instagram and social media. Various scents like cocaine and hookers.
Mm-hmm.
I married a stripper. Smell delicious.
Did you see that he's coming out with a new scent?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And guess what it's called?
I mean, I know. You're going to tell the people.
Pop Smoke.
Hey. I wonder what it smells like.
EP Mike's Chundle.
Oh, God. So it smells like...
Juniper.
Yeah. So it smells like bush light and sweat.
Yeah, so... Buy combatcombover.com.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, not the domain name, just the product.
At least take his URL from him.
Yeah, we're pretty excited about that. Instead of Rip It, you should have had Strike Force Energy, but I don't think they existed yet, so I'll give you a pass.
I don't think they did either. I'm pretty sure Sean was out there with me at some point, up in those mountains, providing Overwatch.
Yeah, snooping and pooping.
That's right.
Yeah, if you check out Strike Force, you can use our promo code Smoke Pit for a discount.
There you go.
You know,
I didn't know we got a promo code.
Yeah. We I asked them if our promo code could be cream pie. They said no.
Well, then I don't want to do business with them.
Yeah, just put that in the notes when you make your order. You
right.
know, when they're like, you have any specific instructions? Just cream pie.
Cream pie with the hand clap emojis because I'm very sassy.
Yeah, and so it's just crazy to think that like at that point in time, like, you're on fucking edge, and
Yeah.
you know, your head's on a swivel, like, you're
Mhm.
trying to just fucking stay alive, and now here we are, just two assholes with a podcast.
Right, exactly. Talking about it.
I mean, granted, I know you got a deployment coming up, but
I have a work trip coming up.
is that what it's called?
That's what it's called. Yeah.
Yeah, he's heading to San Diego to go to Comic-Con.
That's right. And get my sex changed while I'm out there. So it's gonna be a big month.
EP, how we doing on time?
We're at 55 minutes.
Okay. Okay.
He went full Obama there.
You did. What we need to do?
The stuttering communist. Which I actually believe that. It's just the what's it called? Epic rap battles of history,
Mhm.
where Obama went against Romney. That
Yeah,
was a
yeah.
fucking funny line.
A lot of them are good.
Yeah, speaking of which, they're coming out with season 6. And our friend, the Marine rapper,
Yep.
they said if they need a black guy, they'll call him.
Is that what they said?
More or less.
Oh wow.
They said if we need somebody who fits your description,
Oh my god.
a black guy
A black guy.
with a red mohawk.
That's right. Yeah. It's a very niche market.
Very, very niche market. So, do you have any final thoughts on this combat heavy episode?
No, man.
I think we kept it light.
We did. We kept it very light, and I appreciate that. Mainly, you did that for me because I'm a little pussy. But yeah, no. If anybody got anything out of this, that's all that matters.
Yeah, and it's people ask a lot of questions, and they're eager to prove their metal.
Sure.
Which I recently found out is spelt differently than normal metal.
Is it?
Yeah, like metal is METTLE versus is your strength of character.
Really?
Yeah, like test your metal versus which you figure would be
MED. I was thinking
because metal
MED.
that's the metal you're awarded.
Right.
But like if you have like a metal suit of armor, it's like
Oh my God.
METAL.
I'm so dumb. I'm so goddamn dumb. This face has got me a lot.
Yeah, and so they're like, how do you handle it? Man, it's mainly just by putting on. You get back from the patrol, you put in your earbuds, and
Yep.
you listen to music to forget the faces of the men you've killed and the men you've lost.
That's right. I'm with it.
See you next time.
Bye.